No one remembered the widow's real name anymore, only that she had once belonged to the Apache hills, like the wind belongs to fire. And when her husband died beneath the red sky of winter, the land itself seemed to bow with her grief. She lived on the edge of the settlement where dust met shadow, wrapped in black cloth stitched by her own trembling hands, her eyes always lowered, not in weakness but in watchfulness. The town called her cursed because tragedy frightens cowards, and silence makes cruel men nervous. That night, the saloon lights spilled onto the dirt like cheap gold, laughter and cruelty walking hand in hand. And that was when he came, the man who believed power lived in boots and fists. Drunk on whiskey and pride, he mocked her mourning, spat words sharper than knives. And when she did not answer, when she only stood like a burned tree still rooted in the earth, he kicked her, not once but twice, his boot striking ribs already broken by grief. The crowd froze, some laughing nervously, others turning away, because injustice is easiest to swallow when it's not yours. She fell, but she did not cry out. She pressed her palm into the dirt, feeling the ancient heartbeat beneath it, and in that moment something old and furious stirred. The Apache say fire listens to pain, and the night listens to vows. As he walked away laughing, she whispered a promise into the ground, not to him, but to the spirits that had watched her people bleed and endure. The wind rose strangely, the torches flickered, and far beyond the town, on a forgotten ridge, a sacred fire reignited itself after decades of silence. That night she did not sleep. She painted her hands with ash, tied her hair with red thread, and walked barefoot into the darkness. The widow was gone. What remained was judgment wearing a human face. Narrator pause. If this story grips your heart, subscribe now, because the fire of justice has only begun. The man who kicked her woke before dawn with the taste of smoke in his mouth and fear he could not name crawling under his skin. His horses screamed in the stable, refusing his touch, and every mirror he passed reflected him older, smaller, hunted. That day, strange things followed him, footprints appearing where no one stood, embers glowing in cold ash, whispers riding the wind, speaking his name like a curse. He laughed it off at first, because cruel men always mistake warnings for superstition. But the night did not forget. One by one, his stolen comforts turned against him. His gold vanished. His allies abandoned him. The land he cheated from others dried and cracked like a punished tongue. And always just beyond the firelight he saw her, standing, watching, silent. She never chased him. Justice does not hurry, it waits. On the seventh night, the sky turned the color of old blood, and the sacred fire from the ridge descended like a living thing, encircling his house without burning it, trapping him inside his own guilt. She stepped from the flames, not as a victim, not as a widow, but as the voice of every woman silenced, every people trampled. She spoke only once, telling him the Apache believe fire does not destroy, it reveals. The flames rose, showing him every cruelty he had committed, every laugh at another's pain, until he collapsed beneath the weight of his own reflection. By morning nothing remained but ash shaped like a man kneeling. The town woke quieter, changed, because justice leaves a scar even on those who only watched. At the edge of the settlement, a new fire burned, warm, protective, alive, and the people understood too late that respect is cheaper than fear, and mercy easier than revenge. The widow was never seen again, but on cold nights, when the fire crackles unnaturally bright, the elders say justice is listening. Narrator pause. Subscribe to the channel for more unforgettable stories where silence becomes strength and fire remembers every wrong. The town believed it was over, because people always believe justice is a moment, not a consequence. But the Apache say fire finishes what fear only begins. And the night after the man turned to ash, the land itself began to remember. The wind no longer moved like wind. It crept low and deliberate, carrying the smell of smoke, even where no flame burned. Children woke crying from dreams they could not explain. Men felt weight on their chests when they tried to sleep, and women stared into fires too long, seeing shapes that made their hands tremble. The place where the man had knelt did not grow grass. Rain avoided it. Dogs refused to cross it. And slowly the truth spread. He had not been the only one. Others had laughed. Others had looked away. Others had benefited from cruelty while pretending innocence. Guilt is loud when silence breaks, and the night began to visit those houses too. One man's barn caught fire but stopped at the doorway, leaving his stolen goods untouched but exposed. Another woke to find handprints of ash on his walls, small, feminine, calm. No one was harmed, yet everyone understood the message. The widow's justice was not revenge, it was balance. Far beyond the town, deep where the rocks rose like old bones, she walked alone, her feet hardened, her breath steady, carrying the fire inside her now instead of behind her. She did not hate. Hate burns fast and leaves nothing. She carried memory, and memory burns slow. At the sacred ridge, she fed the fire one final offering, not blood, not tears, but the black cloth of her mourning. As it burned, dawn broke clean and sharp, and the fire settled into embers that would never die but would never rage again unless called. She whispered one last warning to the wind, that justice does not need a witness to arrive, only a reason. Back in the town, people began to change, not from goodness but from understanding. They helped the quiet. They feared the humble. And when travelers asked why no one ever spoke ill of the Apache widow anymore, the elders only pointed to the fire and said, because the night listens. Years pass the way smoke thins but never truly disappears. And the town learned to live with the hush that followed sunset, a respectful silence born not of fear alone, but of memory. Children grew up hearing stories whispered instead of sung, warnings folded into lullabies about kindness, about seeing the unseen, about how a single cruel act can wake an ancient reckoning. They were taught not to kick dust at the edge of the settlement, not to mock grief, not to laugh when someone chose silence, because the quiet fire watched, not to punish but to correct. On winter nights, elders gathered the young near the hearth and told them the widow did not vanish. She became a path. They said she walked between breaths now, tending balance where imbalance grew bold, teaching the land to remember mercy as fiercely as it remembered pain. And sometimes, when a child stood up to cruelty with nothing but a trembling voice, the fire would flare just a little brighter, warm but not burning, as if in approval. Travelers noticed changes too. Deals were fairer. Doors opened more easily. A woman could pass unmocked in mourning black. Men lowered their voices when anger rose, as if restraint itself had weight. Then one spring a drought threatened the valley, and old resentment stirred like dry tinder. Arguments sharpened, blame circled. The fire dimmed, not dying but waiting. That was when the children gathered without being told. They carried water, shared bread, repaired fences for neighbors who once would have been shunned. They did not speak the widow's name. They did not need to. As cooperation spread, clouds gathered, rain fell, and the fire returned to its steady glow. The elders understood then. Justice had finished its lesson and begun its legacy. It was no longer a woman walking alone in the dark. It was a people choosing better before the night had to speak. And on the ridge, where embers slept beneath stone, the wind carried a soft approval, proof that fate can be redirected when hearts learn to listen.